I love how in the Spanish track of Gaia, you use the word chispas,
Yeah.
and the sparks, what you just said, the little lightning pieces throughout the chat, and just that little story of that micro solidarity moment, and what's really developed from these little sparks that we feel from each other and feel within. So thank you so much for sharing that story. And I will turn it over to Nora, who will share what's been happening in her part of the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, really, yeah, I heard the story before, but every time I'm so touched to just see how one spark, one chispa can offset another, and we can all resonate together. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. So as Antoinette announced, my name is Nora Wilhelm. I'm from Switzerland, and I'm the co-founder and catalyst of an organization, initiative, community called Helvetia. And what we aim to do is catalyze the societal renewal of Switzerland. So taking responsibility for our privilege, our place in the world, and our carbon footprint, and so on and so forth, and really catalyze the change on a systemic level here. So at the onset of the crisis, the Helvetia team came together and we sat with, okay, what is ours to do now? What is the response that we can bring, that we feel called to bring? There was, of course, an internal dimension. How do we react as a system? So do we close up? Do we become fearful? Or can we stay from a place of solidarity, of care with each other, including employees who have children and so on, all the different realities as schools were being closed? And then there was the external reaction or response. And our sense was that we were witnessing, observing a lot of crisis management and very quick reactions, which of course is needed in a global pandemic, when every minute you wait to do certain things may risk more lives, right? That is one truth. And the other thing that felt true to us is that it's also really a moment to look at which systems are breaking down and why, and which systems are being shown as not actually, like Otto says, creating the results that most of us would want. So both what is this crisis showing us in terms of inequalities and structural violence that is being made worse or made more visible through the crisis, and also new openings, new opportunities, like Willie's beautiful story. And there we felt that it was our contribution to support that reflection. And of course, it's very aligned with the spark that was in Gaia. And as I was honored to be in the global team and co-hosting the Francophone track at the very beginning, I just saw how much energy there were. So we decided to just begin by hosting exhales for the Swiss ecosystem and kind of go from there. And this is how an initiative that we now call Nova Helvetia, which is Latin for the new Switzerland, was born. And what it is that it's infrastructure and an additional process that is anchored within Gaia, but goes beyond it, to support thematic cohorts to explore the topics that they care about. So we have 8: renewing education, gender equity, sustainable cities and neighborhoods, regenerative economy, climate action, future of democracy, how to fund societal change, and storytelling for the future. Yes, and now you can see the beautiful illustration that Jean-Baptiste from the Gaia Francophone track was so kind to make for us. And the invitation was for these topical groups to explore and reflect on their topics on the level of the open mind, the open heart, and the open will. So what this meant for us is to first look at your topic. So take education from which facts and data points are important to notice, what is happening in the topic, what with hundreds of thousands of children, for example, all of a sudden homeschooled in Switzerland, and universities placing their courses online. What does that mean? What is happening? And then on the heart level, what are the stories? What are the emotional realities underneath those data points? So it's one thing to say that this many percentage of our society go hungry, or that domestic violence is increasing by this much, or that certain parts of the population are affected disproportionately by the crisis. And it's another to really listen to those voices, to really invite them into the room, and to really listen to particularly the margin and the voices that are typically excluded. And then on the level of the open will, each cohort, each group was invited to ask themselves, what is this teaching me about myself? So where am I embodying that which I want to see, or the paradigms that I'm now seeing are potentially problematic? And what are the seeds of the future that we begin to see? So not seeds that maybe need to be created, but are actually already there. They just need to be acknowledged as such and witnessed. All of this is flowing into reflection papers, so short publications that are aimed at distillating or crystallizing the insights from this journey. And the journey will culminate for Switzerland with the Swiss Forum. So we're organizing a one-day event that we call the Swiss Forum on the 28th of June, just before the Global Forum. And the aim is to cross-pollinize and explore the shared root causes. And maybe we can see a picture of what this would have looked like had we been able to meet in person. Sadly, we won't. There's a nice picture that maybe can be shown now, but if not, I'll just continue. And yeah, there we go. So this would have been us outside of Corona times. And after that, the reflection papers will be finalized, and we already have interest from the media, from politicians, from the federal government and administration to actually receive those papers and reflect together and continue the conversation. And I can't speak really for what's in those papers and what the insights are, because that is still to come. I also can't speak of all the prototypes that will come out of this, because that phase is also still to come. But what I can share is just a story of trusting an instinct, trusting this spark and just going with it. Because when we started, we had no idea how and even if we would be able to fund this. And not only have we been able to receive some funding, but even funding can now be made available for the prototypes that come out of it. So as one example. Something else that really touched me are the signs of solidarity across the different groups and within the groups. So just to give one example, in one group, two people that probably would never have met in this context met, and a graduate from university told that he lost his job due to the crisis. And the senior researcher in the environmental sector in Switzerland was also part of that group, and just spontaneously offered to support him financially to be a part of this journey, and then eventually donated to the whole project. So just these little sparks of solidarity and of amazing connections and synchronicity unfolding. And lastly, it's really been also a story of turning the camera back around and trying to work together, to be together in a different way. So even, for example, now, how will we allocate the funding to the prototypes? So instead of having the power, having the money, and then trying to select and decide which are the best prototypes, which is how the system currently works, we will just allow anyone to apply and then put the money in the hands of all of the people who applied. And then we basically allocate ourselves to which projects we think are worth being supported. So I just want to end by saying a huge, huge, huge thank you to everybody, to the GAIA Global team, all the different teams that have been hosting the different tracks, so many local teams that have been doing so many things like Collaboratie Helvetica. I'm sure there are so many more. And I just want to leave with one insight. So kind of the courage that it took all of us to really go on this journey knowingly into the unknown, admitting that we don't know. I think that's one of the most scary things to do. And a phrase that emerged in the ecosystem leadership program, which is where Antoinette, Willy, and all of us met, is that we are a global forest with local roots. We are a global movement for civilizational renewal. And I stand here today in complete reverence of what happens, of what the power that is unlocked when we act out of that awareness. We are a global forest with local roots. Thank you.
Thank you for that reminder, Nora, and for the beautiful, incredible work that you both have been doing to do that internal excavation, the internal deep work with yourself and with your communities. And what I find incredibly touching is also the fact that while we've been in these lockdowns and actually our international borders, many of them have been closed, that we have seen so much cross-pollination, as you both shared. So thank you both. And we will make sure that these initiatives we can get more information in the GaiaJourney.org site so that we can keep learning from each other and getting involved in our places. And I absolutely love this global forest, local roots, and going back to what Otto shared earlier, it's a global forest with local roots and sometimes just one little seed that is planted.